My beautiful people, welcome to the invite only experience brought to you by No Slaps, Soul Slap, Smelling Powders, not cocaine. My name is TekNoNo.
My name is Minimal Tech Daddy RN ISMO.
And we are invite only. Welcome to our track feedback session for this particular experience. Today we're going to be reviewing about 10 tracks. Hopefully we'll get through all of them. Just breaking it down from an arrangement standpoint, sample selection, overall groove of the track, and then we're going to suggest some labels for those that we know are sent to us without being signed. Before we get into all that, a little bit about us. So I am TekNoNo, formerly known as DJ Nono. I DJ'd top 40 music at the Annex and 350 Terrace for about 2.5 years with my brothers DJ Chrome and DJ Godfather until the pandemic when TekNoNo was started and I started making the music that I love, electronic music. Through that experience, it brought me to my brother Ish, and we are now known as Invite Only, and we bring to you today the Invite Only experience. Ish?
Yeah, so my name is Ish. I go by RN ISMO, Minimal Tech Daddy in the scene. You know, have released on Repopulate Mars, Issues, Cuff. That was certainly my biggest releases up at this time. And you know, we're excited to really launch this. It's a unique opportunity. You know, starting with something like a track feedback goes a long way for a lot of producers, and I know for a fact, and you know as well, it's a crucial part. I think getting the valuable feedback from people that you trust, and certainly make those adjustments to create the final product that you're truly proud of. You know, for me, I think there's a couple things to consider with the track feedback, which is important. Number one, you know, don't take everything we say with just pure truth. You know, we come from different backgrounds. You know, for me, minimal is something that I am passionate about. So a lot of my suggestions are towards the minimal side of electronic dance music. And certainly with that in mind, I have certain subjective things that I do that I think will be beneficial. That doesn't mean that it's correct. It just means it works for me and the way my ear is.
I think it's important too, like art comes in many different forms. Everybody has a different way of expressing art. And I think, you know, whenever I'm going at providing feedback for a track or a mix or even branding, you know, I always preface it by saying this is one person's opinion. And I think it's really important to highlight that before we get into the intricacies of the track feedback and this entire process, because, you know, earlier on in the stages of production and stuff, I work with people like West End, with Dylan Nathaniel, even Ranger Trucco a little bit, and yourself. And, you know, at the time, I didn't really realize that this is only one person providing feedback coming off of one style of production, right? So it took it to gospel, and it made the first year and a half of production a little bit more difficult, a little less fluent, and a little bit more forced. And I think, you know, where you look at where my production was about 2 years ago to where it is now, you can tell that I'm getting more comfortable expressing those real raw emotions that are within myself, taking feedback for what it's worth, but also just as a grain of salt. You know, it's not something that's gospel in order for me to get a track signed. It's merely just an artistic suggestion coming from another artist. And again, too, you know, Ish brought up a point. Make sure you're sending it to people that you trust, you know, because earlier on in the stage of production, and even sometimes now, I feel like there are some people that I came up with that I send music to, and it's just immediate, oh, this is a ripper, oh, this is great. And although, like, yes, that's fantastic that you like it, I think it's important to have your peers that you seek feedback from selected with intention, because what you don't want is a bunch of people to tell you that your glorified turd is appropriate and it's a solid track, when really in reality it's not. So I think like having your friends or your peers selected with intention when it comes to feedback, people that, you know, they don't have to be Chris Lake or, you know, somebody extremely established, but somebody that knows what the hell they're talking about, to ensure that they're not feeding you some cock and bull around your track, and they're giving you the honest feedback that you're going to need in order to progress that track, get it to the stages where you get it to the demo stage, and then the process of sending that demo out to record labels to review and ultimately
I think you nailed it. I think this is very important. I can't stress this enough, is selecting the right crew that You don't have to, get feedback from 20, 30 people. If you have, like, let's just say 2 to 3 people that you truly, truly trust and their value, you can apply those things into your track and then move on. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that are on version 37. They keep changing things, keep adjusting things. But ultimately, I'm passionate about getting your product done so you can go out there and show your art to the world. And there is certain population that just getting started, right? They don't know where to go. So they might take our word as gospel.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because, for them, it just gives them a sense of direction.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about the people that are very, very close and they might be there already, but afraid to release their art.
Yeah.
So also with the feedback session, it's not, if I say something that might trigger you in some way that could be negative, use that as fuel versus shutting yourself down.
Correct. We're not saying these things or providing this feedback to attack or to dismantle your project to a degree where we want to discourage. We're saying these things because ultimately, our background and the accomplishments that we've had thus far have worked for us, and there's a reason why I am the KMS label manager. There is a reason why you are a very trusted coach and assistant to the entire Mixmaster organization. It's because we have an ear for music and we know some things, but we're learning every single day. So it's very important that you understand that when receiving this feedback for the tracks that were submitted today, and just feedback in general, is like, understand who's providing the feedback, understand what the feedback means. And once you receive that feedback, if you don't understand exactly how to apply that feedback, you got to make sure that you ask questions and dig a little bit deeper so that you have that full understanding. Because me personally, if you don't ask questions, I'm going to assume that you know it, and I'm going to assume you understand.
I think it'd be a good idea to, once the podcast is released, is to, our DMs are open. So if something doesn't make sense, you watch the entirety of the podcast, and you'll have a specific question on the feedback that was being provided. We're certainly available to answer those questions. The last thing I would add is that with the idea of getting the feedback, take it with a grain of salt, we talked about.
Yep.
And, for me, it's about applying it efficiently. And again, coming back to finishing your art. So don't sit around and gather that feedback and not apply it. If you have an ability to argue the feedback, do that in a way that's like, hey, if I say certain thing and you disagree, have in your back of your head an argument that you can back up of why our feedback isn't justified, and then move on. So I think a lot of times people, they take the feedback, they disagree, and nothing happens. Versus disagree with intent to apply.
Yep.
And then thereafter, again, it comes back to what I said in the beginning: finish your art and move on. And if we love something, we'll let you know on this podcast, and I'll definitely say, like, hey, time to submit, time to release, what does that look like?
Yeah, and I think that leads us to a good point too. Like, just a couple of tips and tricks before we really dive into all these tracks here is, when you're sending a demo, number one, do not send an unfinished idea to somebody that is a part of a label as a demo submission. A demo is a completed, rough mastered piece of art that is at the stage now where you're like, hey, this is finished on my end. It may need a proper sound engineer's master, but
DJs can play it.
But DJs can play
DJs
it. Yeah,
can plug
you
it
brought
in
that
and
up
play.
yesterday when we were talking off camera. It's just like, if you send this to me as the KMS label manager, can I download this immediately in any format that you send it and play it in my set at Ranger next week? If the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't be sending it, because ultimately when you send it to a lot of these bigger labels, especially the ones that are utilizing forms of platforms like TrackStack, they're going to download that shit and they're going to test it before they even say anything to you. And if it works in the club, that's probably going to be justification to review it a little bit further. But if you're sending an idea that is like a minute and a half long and it's not finished, I'm not even going to waste my time on it, because it shows that you don't really understand that process. So it's important to at least get your art to the completion on your end, send it to your peers for feedback, and then submit it to a label. Because I'll tell you right now, names that send unfinished products or even tracks that aren't mastered, I tend to move off to the side or even put into the decline pile, just because of the fact that it displays you don't understand the process in totality. And guess what? I can't sit here and say that I'm perfect at that as well, because at the beginning of the process, I was firing off ideas left and right. You know what I mean? But I think now, as I became
it's very important that you say that, though,
yeah,
right
it's
now.
it's as I'm a part of KMS now, I understand, your first impression is the most important impression you can make. And if your first impression to a label, especially these bigger labels, is going to be an unfinished product, or it's unmastered, or you never got feedback from anybody, it's not going to be considered, and it could potentially set you up to make a negative first impression and hinder your ability to potentially get signed by this label, right?
Yeah, I mentioned that to you yesterday. I think Noah is the only exception that I know that you don't have an emotional attachment to something if you receive something inappropriate in the sense of the sound for the label. Because labels, and we can talk about this, when you're sending a SoundCloud link, right, it needs to be private to specifically that label.
Amen.
Right? So it's not like you're sending it to 30 labels and all of a sudden you have 30 plays on your SoundCloud. It's dedicated, it's exclusive to that label, and then you have to wait. And this is where it gets a little bit tiring, because you have a lot of tracks that you're making, you're waiting on the labels may or may not listen. So it becomes this, it's honestly art of its own, sending labels, waiting, being patient, and then
the internal dialogue of I need to chill the hell out and just be patient here.
Correct.
But it ties into too, like,
and then realizing sometimes it's like, okay, I gotta move on. I gotta start sending to somebody else. But the last thing I'm gonna add with that is, having an ability to really just understand that what is the label is looking for, and developing relationships.
Amen.
Which you've talked about, that a lot of demos that you get are from more of a personal approach versus than a cold email or a cold submission from somebody.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It kind of leads me to two different points. Number one is, like, Dantes and I went through probably 20 demos the other day. We signed about 8 of them. But the cool thing about it is, some of those some of the demos, were me just digging and finding artists that were a little bit more underground, or maybe, not at a point where it's like the Chris Lake or the Kai William or the Fisher, like not massive artists, but artists that are doing a really damn good job at making the music that they're good at and playing the shows that are good for them and making a name for themselves, and just being like, hey, I see you make some damn good techno. Why don't you send some stuff to Kevin Saunderson's KMS? And we get the demos that way. I think people have this like weird thought process where it's like, I make house music now, I'm gonna send it to Repopulate Mars. Well, guess what, honey? I sent a demo 3 years ago and the damn thing still hasn't been listened. So your chances of getting listened to sending a track to Repopulate Mars through a demo submission email are very slim. So you have to understand, and I'll let you talk about your kind of journey of this, but understanding that the smaller labels that are in the hype charts are great labels. They're labels that are putting money behind their smaller label to get it noticed in those top 100s in the hype charts, and finding one that is releasing music that's similar to your sound of the track that you're trying to release at that moment. You can't expect them 3 years ago to have music that they're releasing 3 years ago, and you have a song that's similar to those. You can't expect that label to be releasing the same music, because a lot of labels are shifting. They're not necessarily following trends, but the trends are sort of changing the ways that labels accept music. So it's important to understand, you want to shoot for the stars and land on the moon, but you also don't want to shoot for the stars out of a potato cannon. You want to shoot in the right manner.
The bigger labels have a more of a strict process, of course, especially like label like Defected, like good luck getting signed to that. And every label has a little bit of a different approach. So, from my experience with working with Mixmasters and being with Seamus Haji, he talks about how, for example, if you want to get signed to Defected, it needs to be a timeless record. And sometimes Defected is, they would love to see the response. So it's more of a, it's a great track, but we're not sure have the videos recorded, have it being like in a position where they can see that it's being reciprocated by the crowd. Oh, you can do your internal PR, which, if you work with a PR company and you have the contacts with the DJs, you can send out a demo and you can have Marco Carolla play it in Ibiza and it's recorded. Then you can send that to Defected as a stamp that this track works.
Yeah.
Because now Defected is going to be more self-assured to put the money on this track because they believe in it.
That's a really good point. It's like when
and that's only one way, and every label is a little different. And what I was trying to say is also, like, I personally, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I'm in a position where I want to just build relationships with people that run labels directly, versus having something that's, I just send a track out somewhere. I don't know this guy. I don't know what they're doing, and just hope that the release goes well. Versus creating relationships to where I am in a way directly involved because I care about that person across from me, and thereafter I'm involved with the vision of what that record's gonna be like as a part of that label.
Yeah. And I think it adds like another set of fuel to setting a demo. Like, what makes this demo different than every other demo? What makes this demo, a good decision to sign? And not only having a good, solid track and an appropriate label you're sending it to, but also sending it in a way where you're attaching these videos of these larger artists playing your track is definitely, that's a selling point, right? And I don't remember who I was talking to, but somebody that was like big up in space hit him up and was like, I'd love to see all these DJs playing your stuff. And at the end of the day, like, you can have an amazing track that gets no DJ support and still have it be an amazing track. You can have an amazing track that gets a bunch of DJ support and it may be justified to put it on a bigger label. But at the end of the day, the art of sending demos is extremely important, and it is an art that is kind of lost in the sauce when we're thinking about branding and being an artist in totality. I think, and I can speak about Detroit specifically. I can't really speak about the other cities. It's like what we're experiencing right now is there is no scarcity of DJs. But there is a scarcity of artists that are willing to put the time into sitting down with a laptop and staring at Ableton, FL Studio, Logic, whatever you use, and putting the time into production to ultimately make yourself more authentic as an artist. And I think, part of the reason that we wanted to do this track feedback session is just to give people an opportunity to not only see that there are a lot of people that are putting in the work with production, but to see the different levels in which people are at with production. We're all trying to figure this out as we go on. It's a day by day thing. And I think the more that we can all work together, as we preach the we versus me mentality, the more that we can work together and really realize that we're all in it for the same reasons, and we really all just want to make it, and we're on the same team, I think the better off it's going to be for a city,
Yeah, knowing that it's in Detroit, right? A lot of Detroit artists, they don't know who to reach out to. Hopefully this will provide you the inspiration and the platform to know that, hey, you have the support network to succeed. We're here for you. And, ultimately get to the point where, like I've said, let's get your art out. Yeah. And let's build on that. I want to say one thing too is don't focus so much on which label you need to be signed, or it's great to have goals. I have my own goals. Let's not forget that we are artists and we are in charge of the plot that we're trying to create. This is our book, this is our narrative, this is a TekNoNo's novel, this is an RN ISMO novel, this is a conjoined chapter of Invite Only, this is a completely different novel, and we are painting with bold strokes.
Absolutely.
And we're creating something that I want to look at the end of my life and say, this is something that's been a cultivation of many, many years of work.
Yeah.
Well, so don't forget that vision, because we talked briefly on the shorts. It's not, if you're doing it for the right reasons, right? Not the bottles, not the girls. You're doing it for the artistry. I think that's going to take you to the leaps and bounds. You're going to understand a long-term mentality behind it versus, hey, I'm just trying to get signed to Experts Only. I'm trying to get signed to Repopulate Mars. Don't lose sight of that. This will come, but it will come through the process of you creating, and that may or may come right away within a year or two, or it may come within 10 years.
I mean, Cascade didn't start touring until he was 30. I think someone quote me on it, but 34 years old, like mid-30s, right? At the end of the day, you know, that was another reason why we wanted to bring the invite-only experience to life and be vulnerable. Like, we really have no idea what the hell we're doing. You know, the only reason we're able to record this podcast is because we found a wonderful company in Menace Media and a beautiful team that aligned with our priorities and our vision, and they understood our vision, and they offered their equipment and their space in various spots.
And we're working together. We're figuring things out
we're
as well.
Figuring it out. So it's all about, number one, like, understand who the hell you are. If you look in the mirror and you don't necessarily know who you are, what your purpose is, or where you want to go from this day forward, start there. Understand that it's baby steps into this stuff, because as soon as you figure out who you are, who you want to be, and how you're going to get there, the rest is just kind of figuring it out. But we don't want to come to you and portray that we have all the answers, because quite frankly, like, we're free balling life right now. We're just doing it arm in arm.
We ain't got the answers. We ain't got the answers.
We're doing it with smiles, arms locked, and bald daddy energy at the forefront. So kind of diving into it here again. A couple things that we're going to be looking at when we're reviewing these tracks, you know, arrangement, sample selection, mixdown, leveling, the timing of different elements. And then if we feel like the track, you know, after that source of feedback is to a point where if you get that feedback executed on, you could send it to a label. We will suggest some different labels. And, you know, once we get to that point in the process, you know, we can kind of figure out how we can go about doing that. One thing that we're going to do is, for all the people that sent us, you know, tracks for the feedback session today, we will send you guys an email template to, you know, get the ball rolling, get your juices flowing in terms of how to properly send demos, so that you can utilize that. And also ultimately, like, we make this process easy for you. These are things that we have figured out along the way. And just because I'm a label manager of KMS doesn't mean I have all the answers, but we want to make sure that you're growing with us throughout this process, and we're giving you guys the tools and resources to be successful more and more with every single episode. So before we kind of get into it, do you have anything to add before we tap into this first?
Let's do it. I'm ready. I'm going to listen to some music.
Beautiful. All right, grab these headphones here. So first up, we got the Saunderson brothers, Mr. Dantes.
Shout out Dantes and Damari.
From the front, we've got an Alone remix here, which we'll tap into.
Please don't
Almost 3:33, not on purpose. But,
Well, you can probably also like if you kind of like a DJ, you can lower the volume slowly.
we'll get there like, pretty soon. Like the
Considering
next
it's our
track,
first track.
yeah, the next
Yeah.
track feedback session. I'll even do a live mix on record box through the laptop,
A
maybe.
little bit of an echo delay
Yeah,
there,
a
right? A
little
little
echo
reverb
delay.
action.
So yeah, what do you think? All in all,
Well, first of all, I want to give a big shout out to Dantes and Damari for sending us that, and I mean, they're the OGs of this scene. They've been doing it longer than we've been doing it, honestly.
for real.
So, you know,
We've been around for a long time, and you know, we initially approached them with the idea of a track feedback session. You know, they were very, very humbled and honored to, you know, want to lead from the front, and I think that's important, especially for guys like this that hold the Saunderson name. You know, leading from the front is super important because, you know, I know they understand it, but a lot of people look up to them for the name, but also what they stand for on their own. And you know, to be able to review this track first, you know, kudos to you guys. Great track, all in all. I have a couple like just in-depth things, but I think all in all, the groove of the track, the arrangement's really solid. I think, you know, the fluidity of the track is super good. It's definitely a lot different than the original Metawave mix that came out on KMS. It gives a different completely different vibe, almost like a pool house vibes. Like I could see this in like Vegas at like Dre's Beach Club, just lighting it up, or maybe somewhere over in Europe. But in terms of like arrangement and structure, I think you guys nailed it. I think it's structured really well. What do you think about like sample selection and stuff?
Samples were good, and I just want to add to the people that are listening. Saunderson Brothers been doing it for a while, towards the advanced side.
Yes.
And I think, you know, our feedback to them is going to be mostly subjective, meaning that from our experience,
point,
it
yeah.
would be interchangeable. It's not like you have to do this. Like the leveling is off.
Yeah.
And you just got to fix the hat or something.
Right. And I think we wanted to bring you a very versatile and diverse selection of tracks for track feedback today, because we wanted to show, you know, tracks that were at different levels. You know, Dantes and Damari leading from the front with this one, but you know,
I do have some feedback though. I do have some
we
feedback.
do have
There's some feedback
tracks from
Minimal Tech Daddy.
and let's hear that feedback there, Sirish.
I think I would love to have a little bit more drum progression.
Okay.
They have the main hat and the main clap. I think the hat they start with an open hat right away throughout the entire track. Maybe having a closed hat and then accompanied by thank
Yeah.
you. Accompanied by the second hat.
accompanied by.
Yes, correct. So it's a little bit more interchangeable and allows a little bit more of a flow of energy because their elements are coming in with an 8 to 16 bar range, right? Something new is coming in or being taken out. I just thought that for the energy purposes, let's get another hat in there. Maybe get my favorite, the 16th hat.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of a ride in the end. And I think having potentially just like a texture top loop
Yeah.
in the back, just kind of like a little, you know,
Yeah.
and they have the main elements of hat and the clap going. I think that will give a little bit more of the cohesion to the drums because everything else is there. I just thought the drums are a little bit, I hate to say it, it's a little bit too minimal. You know, I just wanted a little bit more of the texture-esque behind the groove in itself. Unless if they don't want that, then it's more of like that techno feel behind it.
Definitely. And I think, you know, the one thing that I had written down was, you know, and this, a lot of people think that when a track isn't completed, that you have to add things. But really, in reality, sometimes what a track needs is addition by subtraction. So I think this is a perfect example of, you know, specifically even in the intro, you know, like that bass comes in hot right away. Maybe filter that a little bit. Filter the low end. Take the kick out at the beginning and just have the bass if you're going to bring the bass in.
You say that's just a general, or you say
just no? I think in this specific track, but I think in general, in terms of production, when people are sending demos or whatnot, or you know, when they're looking to see what more their tracks needs. And I was having a conversation with Kyle Dropcatch the other day when we were going through one of our projects. Is like, sometimes what the track needs to be added is actually subtracting different elements or taking away a bunch of specific elements to give the impression. And I think you explained this to me perfectly, and it's stuck with me ever since this conversation. Is like, you know, before a build or before a break, you know, taking out specific elements to insinuate to the listener, hey, some shit's about to change here real quick. You better be prepared. People don't necessarily understand the power behind those little minimal, as you like to put it, adjustments that could ultimately take your track from being a good track to a great track. Is just taking specific elements out when you're approaching a break or a build or even a drop, or then maybe even low passing or high passing specific elements, I think is super important to add. But all in all, boys, great track. We already know what label this one's coming out on, but super excited to get this one out with you guys. I think it's all in all great track. Take the feedback for what it's worth, but definitely a great track, boys.
Thank you again, guys. The boss of Guilty Records.
TekNoNo. Yeah, I'm talking outside the mic.
Yeah, you're talking outside the mic.
Big shout out to Versace James, one of the first ones to give me a shot as TekNoNo, and you know, to be able to build and grow together and watch Guilty. You know, shout out to them. They just released that, I think, like 8 or 9 track compilation.
The All-Star compilation.
Yeah, just fully showcasing
Volume
a lot of different Detroit talent. You know, the guys found his path, and I think he's staying authentic to it. So shout out to him. Let's give it a listen here. Mr. Versace James. Definitely a different style, not a style that I was expecting.
Well, it's getting more mature. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
It's
you
great
can
to
tell.
see.
Yeah,
It's
I
great
think
to see.
definitely arrangement, structure, you nailed it. I think everything is from a timing perspective, the builds, the drop. I don't think anything's too long or too short. I think from an arrangement perspective, I think you kind of nailed it. You know, I think for me the one thing that stuck out, first of all, that synth, that lead that you got coming in, that like melodic synth lead, that's super nice. I think it fits the track very appropriately. It's very cohesive with the vocal. I think it definitely adds to the storytelling of the track. You know, Till the Sun Comes Up is obviously the name of the track. I definitely feel that vibe from the synth and the cohesion with the vocal and just overall through the structure of the track. I think the one thing that I would say, and again, this could be stylistic, is the fills. I think the fills were a little bit random, but I think that is kind of like a prominent tech house approach to making music, is like let's throw a bunch of fills in there, and I think it's just the style of tech house now.
I just think that it can be done tastefully, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, I think, Ryan, I've been listening to your music since the day you started to release. This is probably the most mature track you've made. With the fills, I just don't think they're needed to a degree that you have them there.
Yeah.
You know, in certain fills, you know, let's just say I have 10 fills. Some of the fills are significantly louder than the others.
Yeah. It's a good point.
That's number one. It's like, okay,
And
like,
it could
if
be
you're
because of where
passionate
it's
about
coming
those
in the track,
fills,
too,
yeah, if
there's
you're
other
passionate about
things.
those fills, you want to keep them there. You got to make sure they're level to a degree. It's like, it's not just jumping at me. That's all of a sudden just something.
Right.
Oh, you know, I just don't think it's there. And it's a push and pull, because this is where my ear was like, it's such a proper, mature track. No need for fills.
Yeah.
No need for fills.
100%.
The
Maybe a few
riser
of them, some of those-
in the build wasn't a fan of. Like, the goes like, doo.
Yeah.
No need for that. The vocal is already carrying that energy. You're washing out the drums. The people already know what's coming. Let them focus on the vocal. I wouldn't worry about the riser. You can do whatever you need to do on the actual mixer now.
Yeah.
Because with the people experiencing this in their headphones, you know, subconsciously they already know like the drop is about to happen.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would say, sometimes the vocal is a little bit too repetitive. You know, it might be just a one phrase sample.
Yeah.
And he's got some things that he changed around.
Yeah, he added some delay, maybe some echo boy in specific places to change it up a little bit.
Yeah, he did. I think it's just figuring out a way. It's like, when do you want that vocal to say its thing? And then the rest will be more like intricate plays.
100%.
Could
Yeah,
be like, I forgot what it's called, but you put in a sampler and you chop it up, and you kind of chop it up as chords, and it goes like, eh.
Is it a granulator?
No, it's not. It's like a chopped version in a sample. I forgot what it's called, but if you drop a sample and it's not a one-shot thing, but you can chop up the entire phrase, you can select, like, based on the keyboard and the piano keyboard, it will play kind of like an MK style type of, like, you can program it in a way that, like, whatever it's being played, it's like a specific melody now, like, and then the drop keeps going.
Yeah, we'll have to figure
going.
out what exactly that specific thing is, so we can send it to him in the email for feedback. But yeah, I think all in all, great track, man. I think, you know, to tie it all together, I think take a look at your fills, go through each one and listen to the track, you know, maybe not in totality, but for the context, and go through each one of those fills and ask yourself, does this need to stay? I think a few of them are good. It kind of made me think of What You Don't Know, Saunderson Brothers remix, like some of those like bassier fills kind of. I think, you know, ask yourself each one of those fills, does this add value? If the answer to the question is no, then maybe listen to the track without it, go through all your fills. But I think all in all,
that's what I would do. I would just turn up all the fills, because the groove is sick.
Yeah.
And then start thinking about, like, one by one. I like that fill there.
Yep.
You know, versus just having all those fills there.
100%, dude. In terms of label suggestions, what are you thinking?
If it's more mature, I mean, it could work for Toolroom, I think.
I think a
That's
Toolroom one.
Yeah, my thing with Toolroom too is the fact that is also they're kind of picky on the samples. You know,
Sure.
if you get an original vocalist on it, let's say you're done, this is your placement vocal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you play it out sick, everyone's loving it, then you can go and proceed and get an original vocalist, and then you would submit to someone like Tool Room, just because I think it's got that like kind of like driven
Yeah.
tech that they
deep,
like,
though, deep.
but it's deep. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and it has
after
the
Tool Room
soulful
vibe.
vocal to really carry it, to connect the deepness with the soulfulness and create that real Tool Room sound. But
But it's got to be more mature. I think there's some things that are a little bit still kind of like you said, the sample selection.
yeah,
Certain fills are a little bit more bassy. The riser just doesn't make sense to me.
yeah,
So those are
yeah.
my
But
thoughts.
great track. I mean, to hear the progression in the production from earlier on in Guilty Records to now, especially in your production, like great job. You can tell the maturity is building. So all in all, great track, man. Mr. Finn, do you want to give us a little breakdown of who Mr. Finn is?
So my buddy Finn, he is met him in Ibiza. Yeah, I worked a season in Ibiza for Mixmasters, and I was a production retreat manager, and Finn was one of the students, and he booked for multiple weeks.
Wow.
So, me just doing my thing for the Mixmasters, he was there, and we just slowly but surely developed a beautiful relationship where he sends me tracks. We chatted last night with him.
Yeah.
So excited
give
to
her
hear
a
what we
listen there,
got
Mr.
and
Finn.
give a proper feedback.
Yeah. Fun. Little helpers.
Move to the dance to the dance to the move to the funky beat. Dance to the funky beat. Move to the funky beat. Dance to the funky beat. Move
Mr. Finn. Wow.
I'm just
I didn't know
so
what to expect,
surprised when
obviously.
you stop it like that, just like, oh, we're
Well,
done.
yeah,
Bald Daddy, we're done here.
We'll get to the record box portion. But wow. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect, obviously, because I've never worked with him. I've never heard any of his music. He was talking about an album last night, so I didn't really know what to expect. I'm genuinely shocked that that's what was sent. Not in any sort of way. I just didn't know.
Well, let's get your opinion first, because I know Finn quite well.
I think all in all, I think like towards the beginning half of the track, there was a lot going on in terms of drums, melodic elements, pads. I felt like there was a lot of points at the beginning of the track that were competing with each other. Like my brain, especially my ADHD brain, what the fuck do I pay attention to right now? Like where are we going? But I think all the elements to a degree were cohesive. They just, again, kind of like, the Versace track, they need to be, or not Versace track, the Saunderson brothers track, they need to be brought in a little bit more appropriately or elegantly, I think.
Yeah, it's like teasing on the first date. You kind of want to create that a little bit of that energy, that spark. You want to, you don't want to just give it all away right away to a lady. She's got to earn it.
Yeah.
Similar to this track, a lot of incredible elements.
Yeah.
And I think, what do we want the person or a listener to focus on?
Yeah.
Right? Because you can focus on the bass line.
Sure. That bass line's fat as hell.
Great.
Yeah.
I think there's some cool elements in the hats, the kind of little tickle hats that he has.
Yeah.
So what are we focusing on? We're more focusing on Move to the Funk.
Yeah.
There's a saxophone in there.
Yeah, that sax came in, for me personally, I think the sax came in too hot. I don't want to hear that sax until you brought it in so elegantly.
I wanted to be
at
more
that
patient
break.
with the sax, but I also think the sample is not a good one because it's quick. Like,
yeah, well,
and it just goes away.
Sure.
Right? I want a little bit more of that, like the natural, sexy, organic jazz, like da-da-da-da.
Yeah, because I think this track has that natural, jazzy, organic feel to it. I think the sax for me, like with the amount that the pads are coming in, I don't think I want to hear it until it came in that break part.
Because like you said, all of those elements are going to work on a dance floor because they're already so strong and unique. Let's write that out.
Yeah.
Let's be patient with it. Let's 1 mile an hour more, just a little bit, engaging that energy throughout the track, and then giving that full drop 3 moment in the end with a full sax or whatever. But I think the sample needs to change. I also think the intro is just a little bit lackluster. I would say a little bit more drums, so it's more DJ friendly.
Sure.
I think it's a little, like
find
you said,
a reference
Little Helpers.
track.
You said Little Helpers in the beginning,
and then it came out of nowhere.
Came out of this like
74 elements right there.
Yeah. So I think with the house, you kind of want those drums to just, they start decent. That's a good drum groove, and then you can build on that versus completely having it stripped back.
Patiently introducing elements with purpose to create overall increase in energy throughout the track, because the elements, every single element besides for that saxophone, cohesive, proper for that track, they just need to come in a little bit more.
I think that hat can be shorter though.
Okay.
More quieter and a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
Little bit tighter.
But all in all, dude, great track, Finn. I think for me, from a label perspective, definitely like with some of those pads and different things, Josh Butler vibes. I think maybe Origins, something like that. But I also had this random thought of like Late Night Munchies. I think Late Night Munchies, something like that.
Tony H.
Yeah.
Maybe smaller labels. I know certainly some Detroit crew that are listening, they're definitely going to be interested in this track. I do think it just has to make sense to me in a sense of I still would not recommend a label just because there's so many things where this track can go.
Yeah.
Coming back to, we talked about, let's take some things away, let's strip it back a little bit, and let's build on certain things that we want to focus on.
Yeah.
Because I think it's too much. I think labels will be interested, but I think if you want to specify to more of a specific label, aka like Tool Room, for example, or any other house ones, I think we need to focus on something that's their thing, and let's build on that with those elements in mind.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think, take some of this feedback, get seated in the studio, get these things kind of hashed out, bring those elements in a little bit more patiently. If you want to find a different saxophone, find a different saxophone. If you don't, figure out how you're going to introduce it in the track, and we can kind of go from there. But all in all, I think that that's a fantastic track, Mr. Fing. And let's go on. We got a little Rufus Du Sol remix from Mr. NAYT.
It's a bold move there, Cotton.
Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. If you're gonna remix Rufus, boys, better come packing. You got me, Nate.
Let the rain come down. Let the rain come down. Open up the skies. Open up the skies. Let the rain come down. Let the rain come down. Shower me. Let the rain come down. Open up the skies. Shower me in love.
Got an urge to want to hold you right now.
Let the rain come.
track, you know.
Wow, Mr. Nate, I'm impressed.
I don't
Kick it
know.
off.
Oh man, it's Mr. Nate. I don't know, aka White Mocha, aka Peppermint Mocha. Kind of go back to back with black coffee right here. This guy, incredible vibe, man. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful track. I mean, I was taken back. I mean, not taken back, but I felt like I was in like Tulum 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Sun is coming out, and this is being played. Oh my goodness, emotions just sitting here.
I mean, I didn't, now mind you, going into this track feedback session, we did not listen to any of the tracks prior to, I mean, we initially planned to do it, but we wanted to kind of freeball it and give you guys that
The honest
first impression.
feedback.
Yeah, I think, wow. You know, obviously remixing somebody like Rufus to Soul, you have big shoes to fill. I think you did a really good job articulating the story and the emotions that I feel like you wanted to articulate with this project. I think a lot of the feedback is probably going to be very specific, but I think this track has some good potential to be a free download edit for you for sure. In terms of arrangement, I think arrangement's good. Sample selection, I think there was, the samples are there. I think where the samples need some work is the overall mix down. I mean, I could tell this track's not mastered right off rip because it's a little quieter than the ones that we've listened to already. I think it needs a proper master, but I think the mix down, there is some, like, there's a specific
There's those snare stabs right there.
Yeah, the like rim shot almost. Yeah.
Right, so they are too loud and they're too dry.
Yeah, I need some echo boy
I think
on
there
there.
needs to be a little bit more space, and they need to be. The bass is the one that's carrying the track. Let's coming back to what do you want the people to focus on? Let's focus on that groove. Let's focus on how sexy it is and how good it feels to listen to this track. I think those elements can complement the drum groove, but they are acting like a lead. They are a little bit too loud.
Yeah.
They're too loud and they're too dry. They're essentially it's like you're painting a different thing with those type of I think
Yeah, they're
rim
very
shots.
tight. They almost need to be a
It's
little
like
bit.
it's like you're trying to make minimal out of this, like which also, let's not glitch the vocals.
Yeah, I
Let's
honestly
not
thought that
glitch
the
the vocals.
project,
Like I
I
thought
thought
froze for a second.
yeah, I thought there was some technical difficulties, but and we both kind of looked at each other, but I think
no need for that.
No.
Everybody knows that it's Rufus. You're
Yeah.
already narrating the story like a beautiful thing. It's not needed. It's just not needed. Let him say his phrase, give it a little bit of a washout, and go back, and you build that drop again from scratch in a very elegant way. So beautiful, so unique. It's a very tasty selected tracks.
definitely,
You know,
it's a proper edit, proper remix.
track.
I think, take those couple of things. I think the last thing for me was towards the end of the track, there was like an atmospheric vocal that you brought in. I think it came in a little too much. I think it came in like every 4 bars or maybe every 2 bars. I think, ask yourself, is it necessary for that many times? Or is it something that could come through a little bit more poetically, a little bit less? I think because of the power and the emotion behind the elements you have selected, you don't necessarily want to busy the track too much, especially towards the end, because the vibe and the emotion and the feeling is so proper throughout. I think that glitch kind of shifted things, so
Yeah.
I think that needs to go, and
That
I don't
needs to
think
go.
that's stylistic. I think that just really needs to go. Let the beautifulness of his voice carry you into that second drop, and then just take a peek at some of the mixing down of specific elements, that rim / like, you know, drum shot that you kind of bring in, that Afro house drum shot, rim shot. Put a little bit of love on that, and maybe put some echo boy on it, or some echo, some delay, some
reverb.
Yep, a little bit
right?
of reverb. But dude, very, very good track. I'm proud of you with this
You
for
can kind
sure.
of space those rim shots out a little bit, one to the left, a little one to the right.
Yeah, pan it. Put some
give it a
pan
little
man
bit of
on
that
there. Have it go.
automation. You know, so it, again, captures the essence of getting lost in the groove.
There you go.
I would say, I mean, we can't really suggest a label because that would be a free download. But the goal would be, if you really believe in this track, let's say you reach out to us, like, I'm ready. We can talk about proper distribution with the free download, and the goal is to get into the Black Coffee's hands.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of
great goal.
resources, different people that have him as a contact. We even walk you through the process of using Hyped Edit to appropriately get your download gate set up so that in order to download this free download, you know, you got to put the email in and or Spotify, whatever it is that you choose. We'll go through that. But all in all, great track, man. Definitely caught me a little off guard. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, proud of you, Nate. Good job, man.
So we got one for Mr. More Than Friends. This is the A&R for Hood Politics record. Him and I go way back to right when TekNoNo was kind of
350 Terrace.
Yeah, starting off when I first started the Twilight on Thursdays thing with Mr. Key Mitch and Godfather at 350 Terrace. He came out and did a little surprise back-to-back with me for that and dropped some tunes. Known this guy for a really long time. Sweetheart of a guy. Helped me a lot towards the beginning of the process, so it's kind of a full circle moment to have him here. So I'm excited to listen. And now he said be gentle-ish, so be gentle.
I'm always gentle. Just like a regular Saturday night. Oh, your volume, yeah.
Got the Hood Politic vibe coming in hot, baby. I kind of feel like this was selected and given to us because we're from Detroit. There's purpose behind. It goes back to that demo selection, boys and girls. politics.
classic hood poly vibe.
Classic hood politics vibe for sure. I think the vocals are chopped very nicely. I think the whole track, like not a damn thing needs to be done to those vocals. I think very proper, chopped it up very nicely, echoed it out at different points. You know, let it after that second drop, that way that you kind of let it kind of teeter out a little bit more slower than in the beginning. I thought that was nice. What do you have for overall structure?
Well, I was thinking, you know, coming back to Versace and More Than Friends, you know, More Than Friends, you can see his leveling of the fills.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a
the
great
leveling of the
point.
fills. This is I think where, you know, you talk about fills. Not a fan of fills, but fills here to really sound cohesive as one unit.
Yeah, and I think that's something
not-
that Hood Politics is really executed on. And they, you
They're
know, they were
mixed
like
down
the
of
driving force.
the fills.
Yeah,
is
the
really
driving force of tech house with like this feel kind of movement. I think they've really nailed it to a perspective where they don't have too much. Maybe there's some tracks, but that's stylistic. But I think they do a proper job of utilizing fills where they're intended to be utilized.
Yeah, I would love to know their process behind mixing those down. I think there's one point there's maybe the hat was a little bit too loud, but it's very small adjustment. I thought with the vocal though, because everybody knows it's Eminem, and I think it'll help with the drop, is let them say the full phrase.
It looks like a
Good
job for me.
So
So
everybody,
go
just follow me, and then maybe carry the whole saying into the last drop.
That's a good point.
That's about the thing.
Yeah.
Do that.
And again,
you know?
that goes
And then it goes back to the fills.
Yeah.
Maybe you can have that dry section with kick and bass, and he says the whole thing.
It's a good point.
You know,
in
like,
the break. Yeah. I thought now this could just be me. I think the first drop was a little too long for me. I was getting impatient. But again, that could be a stylistic thing. But I think all in all, I mean, solid track, dude. I think that second.
I think it'll work well with hood politics. You know.
Yeah, I think you should. I actually know the A&R for Hood Politics. Pretty
Oh,
well, so-
perfect. So we'll send you the email.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
send you the email.
No, but good stuff, man. I think you guys nailed Tech House, and you guys have really, like, you know, to see the progression of Hood Politics to now throwing some of these really huge parties. I think kudos to you guys for staying authentic in what you guys want to be known for, taking it to the bank and running with it. I think you guys are very authentic, and it's commendable, especially in a time where I feel like trends are being followed by a lot of the bigger labels. You know, I think melodic techno's popping off, so there's a lot of labels that didn't release melodic techno that are. I think you guys have always stayed true to your tech house market, and I respect you guys for that. So great track, dude. It's Jockey George.
Cause I know we gotta find some way, but I know that the love is gone.
You want those to smack right there.
Wow. Wow.
I'm impressed. I'm genuinely impressed. Now, if you're making minimal, you're gonna get some minimal Tech
Yeah.
Daddy
See, I don't
feedback
even
here.
know. And now that I listen to that whole track, I wouldn't even consider that minimal. I don't really know what. The first thing that came to head was Monster Cat. I don't know why.
Dude, I'm telling you, I want those stems, and this is. I mean, I can make
Do we
this
have
an
maybe an
absolute.
Ismos thing going on?
Oh,
here,
maybe. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. How long is this?
3 minutes and 30 seconds.
7.5 minutes. 7.5. And I'm
Minimal
telling you
Tech
why.
Daddy.
Minimal Tech Daddy wants it to be 7.5 minutes. The drums are great. The groove is great. Let's be fucking patient.
Yeah.
Everything is so good. The dance floor will reciprocate because the elements that you have are already so strong. They'll be focusing in the drums. They'll be focusing in the kick. They'll be focusing in the bass line.
Yeah.
Boom, the vocal comes in.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about 30 seconds, just the vocal, no pads yet. Boom, the pad comes in.
Yeah.
Boom, the piano comes in. There's your first break,
Yeah.
right? And then having drums come back because it kind of it
was a
goes
really
to
long
like this
outro.
minimal tech to like a lo-fi,
Yeah.
you know. And you put your hands up.
I
'cause
put my
you
hand up because I wanted the
drop.
fucking drums back.
You wanted the
I wanted that
drums.
7-minute version.
Yeah, and then I feel like in that section when it's really long, just introduce the kicking bass again, like dum, dum,
Yeah.
dum, dum, and then it's
Yeah.
like fades out, and then the drums.
Now
come
you
in.
really got
Oh,
people locked in feeling some shit. No,
yeah.
I think, dude, holy shit. Like, you've been sending me demos for a really long time, and you've always kept a very specific vibe. And it's a vibe that I don't think a lot of people that are making music around here
Boom.
are doing. Like, it's the shit you find randomly in a random ass playlist that you fell onto, suggested on Spotify, and you're like, what the fuck was that? Like, that was fucking great. Dude, this is proper. I think, like, I think we want to sit down with you and check this out with you and really work it out together.
This was one of those things
cool.
like I got inspired by listening to this, and if you know, I wanted to open Ableton right now, just like,
Hell
okay, let's
yeah.
make this 7.5 minutes.
Yeah.
That was my first thought.
We'll definitely chat with you, Mr. George. Good shit,
So,
man.
great stuff,
and
man.
Way to stay authentic to the disc jockey George sound. Like,
Correct.
every demo I've received from you it hasn't been this emotional. However, it has followed a very structure, like the same structure and overall like bounce and vibe to it. Like, good shit, dude. One more.
Let's do it. You pick. Oh, we can go with Isaiah or Isaiah.
We'll do that. Selected, and then the next ones we got. I mean, we still have 7 we didn't even pull up, but we'll save those for maybe a track feedback session number 2 after we receive feedback on the overall structure of everything, and we really narrow down how we want to do this efficiently.
And we want to make sure that it's being reciprocated, right? Because
Absolutely.
like we talked about, we don't know what the hell we're doing.
Nope.
So if you guys don't like it, let us know. We'll adjust.
Yeah.
For the next track feedback. Again, time frame is of an essence. So of course we want to review all of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just won't.
I was genuinely blown away by how many we
got a
received.
lot
I
of
was expecting
yeah.
maybe 5 or 10. I think we received overall 21 submissions, which amazing, guys. Like, very inspiring for us, especially because, you know, the way we see the scene, we feel like there's not a lot
all
of people.
different vibes as well.
Yeah, very,
so
very
cool.
different.
So cool to see.
Yeah, so kudos to everybody that participated. We'll definitely be sending you guys a one-off email with specific feedback. Obviously, you guys can watch this as well. But good stuff, man. So last but not least, who is this?
This is Isaiah. This is actually my former tennis player I used to coach.
Wow.
Goes by LuvDisk, and he's been killing it.
Okay.
I have not heard this, so
Not at all.
not at all. So I'm excited
You
to
want to
see.
point out that in terms of my geographical knowledge, I believe he's in Positano, Italy, which I just went to. One of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. Just wanted to add that in there. I was not expecting that. Mr. LuvDisk. Oh, damn, son, where'd you find this? All right, so this episode today is brought to you by Soul Slaps. It is a no slap thing here. There are ammonia salts. Whoop! But also, most importantly, shout out to our guys at Menace Media for putting this all together. Been a huge help for us to really get this podcast idea off the ground. They made it very easy for us to essentially pick a location, pick how long we want to record. Everything's already set up. All we have to do is typically tell them about the idea for the podcast beforehand, show up, record, and here we are.
Smile, and record, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Menace
So-
Media just expedites everything.
Yeah.
So you don't have to overthink anything. Just show up, record.
So
Well,
and
through it.
they're the official I wouldn't say necessarily sponsors, but they're the official ones that are going to be taking care of us for the entirety of this podcast. So big shout out to Mark, to Bert, to Agron for all their help making this entire process super simple. And if you guys have, ideas and you want to start a podcast, whatever you want to do, hit up the boys at Menace Media. Check them out. If you have questions for us beforehand, let us know. But big shout out to them. And we're going to get back to the episode. I think all in all, the track, like the only thing I have to say is I don't know what the hell was going on at the beginning of the track with the intro, but it's not a mix. It's a track. I think if you get an appropriate intro for this track, I think the track's done. I don't have any
I think it
feedback.
sounded like we're about to listen to some DJ mix series for an
Yeah.
hour. It just
Welcome to BBC One Radio with LuvDisk here.
and I think it's I understand the creative aspect that you're trying to do, but if a DJ likes the track a majority of the time, you can speak about it if you were to send it to Track Stack. It's like a lot of times you guys skip through, kind of get to the juicy parts.
Yes and no. I think
And all
for me
labels do
personally,
that,
each
though.
demo I give a clean slate. Like I don't look at the name. I don't look at the name of the track. That's more so after. But I give the intro to me is important because of that DJing aspect. I think for me to
DJ friendly, right?
yeah, no, it's not DJ friendly. However, the elements are there. The structure of the song is there. Just you need to tighten up the intro. Like you need to have a purpose for the intro. because for me, it sounded like you were beginning a DJ mix and not starting a track. And if I wanted to play this during a set, I'd tell you to make me an intro edit or some sort of edit to this, or I would even edit it myself.
So yeah, it's kind of creating that little bit of a gate. It's like, hey, I love this track, I want to play this out, but the intro is something that I don't like. Then I have to worry about the intro, and then it's like, ah, screw it, I'm not interested.
Correct.
So
yeah, and honestly, like the reason we say that is not because we wouldn't want to play the track or I wouldn't want to play the track, whatever. It is because when you are going through a volume of demos that is so intense, you have to have a process. If we spent 15 minutes on every single demo, we would not get through demos for KMS in a timely manner whatsoever. So I think you have to understand that at the other end of this demo, you're going to have somebody that's listening to, especially for these bigger labels, 300, 400 demos in a day. So you have to make it, you don't want any sort of roadblocks throughout the process of you submitting a demo to it being listened to, it being decided on at all. The more roadblocks you have, the less chances you are going to get of it being signed.
Now, how long is this track?
This track is 45 seconds. So I need at least like 30, 45 seconds added. Outro, intro.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even 5.5. I know you like your shorter tracks, but I'm saying 5.5 for a proper extended mix for the DJs.
Yeah.
What did you think of that change up?
Which change
The
up?
change up midway. You can play it right now. We can kind of listen to it again. Yeah. I just thought that the groove is so good. Let's just keep it going. And that change up is like, okay, it's unique in a way, but it's distracting.
I would ask, what's
me.
the purpose?
Yeah,
why did you
purpose?
put that there? If
That's
you have a reasoning behind it artistically and you can express it in an
Yeah,
educated
if you
manner,
can argue my feedback about why you did a certain
absolutely.
thing,
That's a
then
prime
you can
example of
keep
what
that.
you were talking about.
Yeah,
Is if
'cause I
you
would-
can tell me, hey, I wanted it to do this because this, perfect. Okay, that's your art, by all
Yeah.
means. But I think, get that intro worked on a little bit, maybe build the track out, at least intro, outro at the very least to complete this radio edit to a degree. But I think,
Well, remember, I would say extended mix. Work on an extended mix because you can always make a radio edit out of the extended mix. And it's, for you, I would say just toss a reference track for the arrangement purposes that's similar to this vibe and literally copy and paste the skeleton of the arrangement.
I love it.
Intro, build, drop, break, all of that. You can make little locators in Ableton to solidify a certain section that you're working on. And then thereafter, it's, to me, as a DJ, I'm a patient mixer. So for me to play this out, well, it's true. I mean, I play 7, 8, 10
it's a
minute
DJ
tracks.
NoNo transition right there.
It's funny because I'm remembering the Big Pink fiasco when you left me with a track that was like 2.5 minutes long to transition out of, and I panicked.
Yeah, that actually happened. He panicked. It was a 3-minute and 15-second track.
I was so pissed.
It was a breaks track, and in the middle of the set, he was yelling at me as if I did something incorrect. However, full well knowing he wasn't paying attention to the fact that it was a 3-minute and 15-second track. We both learned something very valuable that day.
Invite only. It's,
invite only. And again,
mixes.
if that's not a proper example of we really don't know what the fuck we're doing, we just give off that impression. I mean, I don't really know what is, but really enjoyed the time today, man. Really thankful for all the demos that were sent in, all the tracks that were sent in for the feedback. I thought this was a very, very fun time, and it was cool to hear guys' different expressions of art. I think as we wrap it all up and put a bow on it today, we got Ranger Truco coming up on the 1st of March. I believe this is going to be airing on Wednesday, so that'll probably be a couple days after this airs. It's his first hometown show where he is the headliner, so we're super excited to host him at Magic Stick. We got Drop Catch starting it off real proper with the Disco Daddy vibes.
Disco Daddy.
Invite only. I think we have, 7 or 8 tracks that have never before
heard.
heard.
We got a lot of different tracks from you. We got a lot of different tracks from me.
Yeah.
We got a lot of tracks between both of us.
We're still trying to determine if we're going to do an all ID set between TekNoNo, RN ISMO, and Invite Only, but there's a lot of testosterone.
A lot of
that we gotta
energy, a
sort
lot
out.
of emotions to express.
Yeah. But we'll see you guys at Magic Stick on the 1st. And to wrap it all up, we got the giveaway winner for the guest list, 2 guest list spots for the Ranger Truco show. And through the random generator that we did earlier today, Mr. Blake Brusselhoff is going to be the winner of that. So Blake, we will message you if you don't respond by the time that this is put out. But
If you don't message us, we will have a problem.
we will have big problem. But thank you guys all for joining into the invite-only experience.
Can I say one thing, though? Just one thing. This is a track feedback session, and we're going to definitely explore into more track feedback sessions,
Yeah.
but we also want to explore
That's a good
into
point.
other ideas, like guests, like different topics. So make sure you guys stay tuned on our socials,
Mm-hmm.
RN ISMO Music, TekNoNo Music, and it's invite-only music.
Yep.
And we will also put a subscribe to our channel. We'll put a link down there
Yeah.
for the YouTube. So our podcast is gonna be exclusively on YouTube for now.
And for the artists that send in the tracks for feedback, make sure that you provide the same amount of feedback for us in terms
Correct.
of the overall process, what we could do to make it more efficient. Obviously, from a technical standpoint, we're still hashing everything out and finding our fluid motion for this particular experience. But share the feedback if you want us to grade a little bit more in depth. Like, let us know if there's ways we can improve this process. Let us know if there's guests you want to hear us talk to or different topics you want us to bring up in future podcasts. Please let us know. But thank you all for joining us today. It's a good day to have a good day. I am TekNoNo, Mr. Bald Daddy of Invite Only,
This is RN ISMO.
and we are Invite Only.
See you guys soon.